Hello lovely people. Today I will be testing this Nakamichi DSP amplifier and I'm going to take the actual measurements of it. If you watch my previous video where I did like a comparison between two sound cards and I decided to buy the Motu sound card and apparently it's like a faulty card, I said in that video that Adam is gonna lend me some equipment to measure. So he's gonna lend me like a topping D10S for source and a different AD converter. But as a practice run, I'm gonna try to do all the measurements with the Focusrite on this one. So this is gonna be like my first evaluation of piece of equipment. And I will be testing the amplifier and the actual RCA outputs of this DSP amplifier, and I will have all the measurements and I'm going to present them and see what happens. So if you watch like last week, I did a video about all the equipment that I'm using. So I'm using a lithium battery that sits on 13.6 volts. I have a amp meter. I have a load bank over there that's loading all 4 channels of the amplifier. I have everything measuring with a Scarlett Focusrite interface, and I'm capturing the data with REW. So it's gonna take a while, probably an hour, maybe 2 hours. I'm gonna have a look how much it's gonna take. And then I'm gonna present all the actual measurements that I'm doing. Okay, all the measurements are done. It took me probably an hour and a half to do everything, and I did screw up in a few places. I have to redo everything. So I have 2 files. One is for the amplifier and the other one is for the RCA output, which is like the DAC. Now, before we go into this, I made a lot of measurements and I'm not sure which are going to be very useful, which will be not. So it might be like, as this is, again, as I mentioned, it's the first try. Just we will see what sticks, what's not, what is important, what not, and then I will know most likely what to measure and what not to measure. Before we do this, I want to go here. If you know Amir, Audio Science Review, he does all of these things, but he does it with audio precision and he does it with home amplifiers and DACs. And there's a thread in audio, psychoacoustics, and science, audibility thresholds of amps and DACs. And basically in here, it's a very good thread to read through. And he says, the author of this thing, he says like CDs 96 dB blah 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 blah, and basically it ends up that 120 dB is required for full transparency. So anything below 120 dB is inaudible, like practically impossible to hear. Everything above it kind of can be, but it depends. And here a bit lower he gives examples. There we go, here. So some guy did amp measurement recommendations, blah blah blah. Noise needs to be 85 dB below the signal to be inaudible, which works out to about 0.005% of THD plus noise. And it says music masks distortion, so down to 0.1% is considered acceptable. Yeah, everything above that is, it might be audible and it might be like influence the actual signal. So as this is an example, if we have like 120 dB or lower compared to the 0, everything here below is inaudible. Everything above 120 is kinda, but then it's down to he says 66 dB FS, 0.5%. So 66 is here. So he says that like everything above minus 66 is going to be like audible as like noise, hiss, or like distortion or whatever. And everything below, if you're playing music, it might not be. So like this, for example, this example, 3K harmonic might pop into even if you're listening to music. So I'm gonna work on this because I will need to remember, because now I just went through these numbers. I'm not gonna remember everything, but like I'm gonna aim for something like 0.05% or minus 66 dBFS. So let's have a look. This is, now I need to figure out which is which. I named it, but I forgot. Okay, so this is the DSP. So DSP, the RCA outputs here. So we have like minus 120, and then we have minus what, 66? What was it? Minus 66. So minus 120, below 120 is inaudible. And we can see that the noise floor of this DSP pops up here at the lower frequencies below 150 hertz. So it has noise floor issues, and we have a massive peak here at about 6.5K. So this is floor noise. It is what it is. So this is on using analog inputs. If I use Bluetooth check floor noise, I have a lower floor noise with Bluetooth. It's like that. So it's below 120. And with USB, I have kind of the same level. However, on using USB, we have some harmonics popping up in the floor noise only. So this is the floor noise. Now let's have a look at the 1 kilohertz tone. So this is floor noise compared to 1 kilohertz tone. This, for some reason, shifted. And we have this kind of the same. We have this fundamental note. And then we have these harmonics. So harmonics, as here, I'm gonna come back to this because I'm gonna forget. Basically, we're aiming to have harmonics at least 65 dB lower than 65 dB. So if I draw a line 65, yeah, harmonics are lower than 65. So this is fine, but it still has harmonics. So this is using analog input. And this is using, so when you have a generator and you can generate a sine tone of 1 kilohertz, you can lock the frequency. The thing is, like, I don't know what this does, but basically what it does, it gives me a more accurate measurement. So you can lock the frequency and it's gonna be like this one peak. If you unlock it and you play this, you're gonna have this, which I guess this is the new noise floor or something. I don't really know. But this is basically with these two things. It's just because when I play USB and Bluetooth, I cannot run the generator through Bluetooth or USB. So I have to generate a file of that 1 kilohertz. And when you generate the file, with the file, even if you tick it, you cannot lock the FFT. It doesn't lock. So that's why I did two. So just to compare analog versus Bluetooth versus USB. So we can see straight away, even if we're just comparing like this, on Bluetooth, it's much messier signal. On USB as well, much messier signal. And we can see here as well the distortion. That's when you save the file, it saves all the distortion. So we're aiming for THD plus noise. So this is using the analog. It gives me THD plus noise of, oh my god, I lost it, 2.4%, which is a lot. Bluetooth is 3.5, which is more, and USB almost 4%. So basically, with this specific DSP, USB is the worst source, like THD wise, is the worst. Bluetooth is a bit better, and analog is the best. Analog inputs. So yeah, USB player is kind of bad. We have the same with the multitone. So this is on analog. If we compare to floor noise, like that. Then we have Bluetooth, which is very bad. Like for this one, we can look at dBr, so relative. And like here we have minus, what this, I'm looking at this peak. So minus 78. And we need, it doesn't say about this. Does it say? No, it says only about the sine wave. So I don't know. But basically below 65. So it is kind of below 65, but barely. The lower frequencies are very bad on this DSP. Like it has a lot of noise and distortion. However, when you use Bluetooth, it goes to shit. It's like you have literally nothing at the bottom, and the bottom end is so bad. Like, I don't know, very bad. And USB, not much better. Exactly the same. So if we look at the numbers, we have multi-tone distortion, THD plus noise, 0.11%. Using Bluetooth, it's just 94% distortion. And USB, THD plus noise, 95% distortion. So yeah, basically on music, the multi-tone for this DSP using Bluetooth and USB is very bad. And I did mention in the review when I did of this DSP, however I was testing the amp, but it's much worse as well, that it sounded kind of not bad, just because I was listening only to the mid-range and tweeters. So I was listening to this end, but I haven't heard like the bottom end, because I was literally playing just from like 250 and up. So it's like minus 40 dB, which is, yeah, pretty bad. So we have these measurements, and then I have made a sweep. So this is all these, the rest is on analog, because I cannot do these like stop signs. I cannot do them over Bluetooth or USB, so it has to be on analog. So we have a sweep. So this sweep will show us frequency response. So for this one, we can zoom in like to 1 dB, there we go. And we can see that is like the low frequencies drop off a lot. And I did double check if there's any like crossovers applied or something, but everything is on bypass. So like, so it's just 2 dB, but it's like 4 dB down at 20 hertz. So down to 30 is just, well, plus minus 2 dBs, but then it just drops down. So I don't know. And the higher frequencies as well, 20K, it doesn't like to play 20K. 20K is, well, minus 6 dB. And yeah, so it's not very linear. I did sweep it all the way up to 40. So let's, oh, actually I'm checking dBF. Let's check this one. Oh my God, where is it? I'm gonna lose it. There we go. I was checking on dBr, which is different, but oh yeah, so it's a bit better. Okay, so we have, yeah, minus plus, and but yeah, like minus 6 dB. I did check it all the way up to 48K just to see how it drops. So we can see that, like here, it drops off nicely down to 20, and then it drops off. This is frequency response. We can check the distortion with a sweep, and with a sweep we have, so remember, this one, we were aiming at, so 0.005 below, or this, is inaudible, absolutely inaudible, and 0.05 is kinda. So we see 0.05 is this, and for this, it's kind of fine, apart from the lower frequencies, like below 25 and stuff. But if we're aiming for 0.005, which is here, it's, yeah, it's not transparent at all, because you need transparency to be lower than this. So it's not transparent, but it's probably inaudible. So it's fine, I guess. Then we go to this one. So this one is checking 1 kilohertz sine tone, depending on the level. And we can see that the THD plus noise, which is this one, goes down all the way. So when you're increasing the level, the THD decreases. It's like signal to noise ratio goes down. And we can see here, like at this point, you see this green line. So this green line is the noise. So it's always dominated by noise, but here we have this popping up, which is THD. So THD starts to rise from like minus 24 dBFS, and it starts to rise, and then the THD starts to influence the actual THD plus noise. So what I did, I chose a point here, which is minus 70 dBFS. And all of these measurements that I did, like 1 kilohertz and this, I did them with minus 17 dBFS. So like, I thought it was going to be like the lowest noise point. Then we have multi-tone level, which kind of down to minus 17 is kind of lowest. But again, if we're aiming for 0.005, it's nowhere close there. So yeah, it's not that good. And then I was checking the THD with the same minus 70 dB level versus frequency. So this is basically almost the same as the sweep. No, it's not the same. Sweep is on the, no, it's the same level. But yeah, so this one shows me a bit more. It shows me that, again, everything is influenced by, because sweep doesn't take noise into consideration. When you do the sweep through here, like through measure, it shows you distortion, but it shows fundamental, THD, and noise. Whereas if you do step signed, you have more data. So you have noise plus THD and everything. So you have a bit more everything. And for this, we can see that we have 0.08 THD on average through everywhere, apart like high frequencies go up and low frequencies go up. And our like threshold is 0.05. So it's above the, as in this thread, they say, audibility threshold. So this, even the DSP, it's not the amplifier, just the DSP itself could influence the sound in theory. Will it? I don't know. But it doesn't look good. Now let's have a look at the amplifier, which is going to be much, much worse. So what I did, first I took the floor noise of my audio interface, Scarlett, which was down like 140 dB. And this is the amplifier's floor noise, which is, you can see here, it's like minus 25, minus 15. And low frequencies are horrible, horrible, horrible on this amplifier. It goes just barely like minus 80 dBFS. Now we can have a look at the 1 kilohertz. So is this, and we can see we have much, much more harmonics. So if I compare this with 1 kilohertz, which is this one, yeah, let's choose dBFS. Yeah, so with this, we can see, like comparing, that this has, like RCA outputs has some noise, but it doesn't have many harmonics, just here. But the amplifier has loads and loads of harmonics. And these measurements were taken with 5 volts out on the speaker level. So like, I don't know how many watts, but like 5 volts. I chose this level, just like I mirrored it. So loads and loads of harmonics, which is not very nice. Now, multi-tone distortion, much, much higher. Now we have, so floor noise remove, we can go dBr relative. And now we can see that like the sine is minus 93 dB. And this one is only minus 45. And if you remember, it's supposed to be like minus 65 for like barely audible. So this is going to be very, very audible. Loads of distortion here. And can we check actually the distortion? On multitone, we have THD plus noise, 3.4%. Yeah, that's a lot. On sine, THD plus noise, 0.4%. It's still, it's a lot of distortion. And this is only 5 volts. Then I did a sweep. So this is the frequency response. And as you can see, it's a total mess, especially at the top end. I don't know why. I have no idea. It's not the sample, it's just nothing. It's just it does what it does. Again, lower frequencies kind of drop off all the way minus 4 dB here. But here is just, yeah, it's something, I don't know, but it's really, really bad. So that's the sweep. And now we can go to distortion tab with these. So this is the distortion based on level. 1 kilohertz tone, and this is the distortion with increasing level. So I did, so this is the dBFS, the signal. I went, as I mentioned, down to minus 10 dBFS in the generator. Then we can use the same to see the voltage. And like here we can see like the voltage 5 volts with these all the measurements. It wasn't the lowest THD. The lowest is like 3.5 volts, but I chose like 5 volts. I'm going to be using it for all the measurements. And the most useful, I think, it's watts. So if we have watts, we have this. And we can see that this DSP, with all 4 channels loaded, cleanest at like 3 watts, 4 watts only. Then distortion starts to rise above 17, 18 watts per channel. We hit 1% at about 22 watts. And before it goes crazy, it can produce about 35, 36 watts per channel. So this is surprising because I was expecting it, but it's like 1.7% THD. So it is distorted signal. It's not nice, but like it can produce like 35 watts per channel, which is very, very surprising for that small DSP. But you would be listening it like maybe down to 20 watts or something. So like for 20 watts, for tweeters and mid-range, it's not that bad. But yeah, like it's a total mess. You have like all the harmonics just totally random here. If I, yeah, so this is the multitone. So multitone is much worse. With multitone, you have only like 5 watts of clean power, clean-ish. 2% THD. Basically, the lowest this does on music, 1.3% THD at 1.4 watts, which is, I want to say, I keep saying this word bad, but it is bad. This is THD versus frequency on 5 volts. And we can see again, if we are aiming for 0.05, which is here, this amplifier is distortion factory. It's literally producing only distortion and very little music. If we take 1% distortion, even like here we have, especially the bottom end, everything is above 1%. So it is a distortion factory. If we crank it up to 9.5 volts, which is like, as I mentioned, 9.5 volts, which is like, no, that's watts. If I change to volts, yeah, 9.5 volts is something like 1% THD. So if you crank it up to like almost max volume, you have this. And again, you have like on average 1%, 2%, 2.5% distortion. Again, it's distortion factory. Remember, 0.05 is like our goal. This is only distortion above. It's a really, really bad amplifier. So these are the sweeps, and now we can go back to this one, and I compared Bluetooth and yeah, Bluetooth and USB through the amplifier is much, much worse. So here we have, what do I have here? THD plus noise, 4% again. So same like on, yeah, so is the same on the amplifier and on the RCAs is the same 4%. But yeah, it's really, really bad. Like the, yeah, so this is the multitone, dBr, which like at the bottom, there's literally no dynamic range, nothing. It's pure distortion. Remember, we need minus 65, at least minus 65, which is here, which is like just pure distortion on the amplifier. Sine tone as well, pure distortion. And the floor noise that I took, dBFS here, is the floor noise is not bad, but like when you're playing music, it's really, really bad. People ask me, how do I find time? So this is how I find time. So I just literally finished that section with measurements, and now I'm going to pick up my little one from the nursery because it's after 3 o'clock, so it's time to pick her up, and literally have 2 minutes to talk about that DSP amp. So that DSP amplifier, according to measurements, is really, really bad. Even the DSP part, the amplifier, I'm not talking about the amplifier. Amplifier is just, sorry about the lighting. Amplifier is really horrible on like any standards. And the worst part is the DSP is pretty bad as well. So if we come back to, again, apologies for this because I'm just rushing. If we come back to my initial video when I did the initial overview and I said that for the price is a good DSP amplifier and I would recommend to buy it, do I stand by this statement? Yes. And why? Think about the price. So I did mention that that DSP amp is not for competition. It's not competition level at all, but it just does what it do. Yeah, so it does. It produces a lot of distortion. Yes, it's not clean. Yes, it has like loads of harmonics and everything, especially on the amplifier stuff. Yes, however, for the price, like when you're driving a car and you have like basic install with basic budget speakers, this DSP, it's not perfect, but I mean like it fits, if you know what I mean. Like, what is the point if you have like a speaker set for 50 pounds, a basic install, just factory upgrade, and you buy a Helix DSP Ultra? It just doesn't make any sense, you know? So I do stand by the same statement that for the price, what that DSP does, it's good. It measures bad, but for the price, it's good. Man, there's too much sun. So would I recommend to buy it? And again, I'm just going in circles and circles. Yes, because if you can afford only 150 pounds, buy it. Why not? If you have just a basic setup, buy it. Learn. The thing is, like, even with this DSP, learn how to tune. Learn to take the measurements. Learn slopes, EQ work and everything. It has those 31 bands of EQ and everything. It's not gonna sound clean, it's not gonna sound nice, but it's a workhorse. It's exactly the same when you have a car. Like, some people buy a Ferrari and some people just buy like a shitty Honda just to go from point A to point B, and it's a bad car. It rattles, it's like it breaks down, but it's just, it does its job. It's a workhorse, yeah? So it's kind of the same, I think, in my opinion. So buy that DSP if you want it, if you want to experiment. But if you're looking for sound quality, if you're looking for quality product, skip it. Buy something else. Yeah, thank you very much, guys. I'll see you next time. Can you say bye-bye? Say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.